What is going on, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Keel Pro Dynasty Show. I'm your host, Cair Elam, and today we have a special mock draft episode, bringing in one of the most underrated draft guys out there, hidden gem in the draft community, and one of the big helpers of the Dynasty Index, and that's Owen from the Weekly Huddle. How are we doing, Owen?
I'm good. Just a heads up, if I sound a little stuffy, I am freshly sick as of yesterday. So I just got started getting stuffy. So I took some Sudafed a little bit. I think I'm a little more clear up now, but I'm going to try not to sniffle too much and mess with the audio all that much. But yeah, I'm excited to be on here. I know I've had you on my channel a couple times talking about mock drafts and other draft stuff. I do the defensive players, and as of right now, the offensive linemen for the Dynasty Index. I do the write-ups. I have my own personal grading scale. I basically have no life outside of going to school and doing this. So I sit here and I think I've gotten like 138 players done so far overall, mixed of all different positions, but mostly I've done some of the major quarterbacks, the wide receivers. So I know most of like these guys. I know everyone I've put in this mock draft. I have personally scouted myself. And also I have a bunch of other people, which you can see on the Dynasty Index. You can see I have my own big board, as well as all the other position groups. You can find my little write-ups on them.
Yeah, for sure. I'll plug an ad in there as we always do. Join the Dynasty Index. He's a big part of that, and one of the few people that grinds even more than I do. So it's a great combo, and I trust your judgment when it comes to this mock draft. And I think it's going to help me a lot out as well. Like, as we all know, I do all the offensive player film that I cut up and all the grades and stuff for that, but it doesn't leave as much time for me to do offensive linemen, DBs, defense. Like, I follow most of the top guys for IDP purposes since I play that quite a bit, but I don't know as much as I should at this point when it comes to the players you focus on. So I think this will be a nice exercise to see where we have guys going, your thoughts on players, and then from my perspective, if I like the landing spots for some of these skill position guys. So without further ado, let's hop right into it. Obviously, we got the Jacksonville Jaguars up on top. You have them taking Kayvon Thibodeaux. I'll put in the second pick as well. Detroit takes Aiden Hutchinson. Maybe not of a lot of a surprise there. These are the two top guys everyone's talking about. Why do you have Kayvon over Aiden? Is it more of a scheme thing, or what are your thoughts with these two picks here?
So with the Jags, it's been an argument recently about who's gonna go Aiden, Kayvon, or maybe they'll go off to tackle. I've seen a lot of Evan Neals and Ike McWanu's right now. I personally have Kayvon Thibodeaux going because with what they have in Josh Allen, and they took Cleavon Chase on a couple drafts ago. That defense is super young and super athletic, and Allen has more of that power edge rushing, but Chase on doesn't really have that power edge and hasn't been able to get on the field as much. And I just think that with where the Jags are in their cycle, they have some key pieces that can go out there and be studs like Allen right now on their defense, where Thibodeaux, all of his traits are he's like one of the biggest athletic freaks I've ever seen at defensive end. But the one knock, it's not like he's not my highest graded player in the draft because he doesn't have as many pass rush moves as you'd like to see from people who are potential number one overall picks, like a Chase Young or Myles Garrett previously. So with him, if he can get some more tools and some more counters in his game, then he would definitely be by far and away the best player in this draft. But just on athletic tools alone, I think he could go to Jacksonville, not be tasked to be that guy who's like, he's the high floor, low. He doesn't have the highest floor right now going in, but he has those super high ceiling, and he doesn't need to be the guy year one in Jacksonville because they have some other guys on the defense already, as opposed to someone like Hutchinson for Detroit, where Detroit doesn't really have that star or that playmaker that can come in and be a day one impact like Hutchinson could be for Detroit. So Hutchinson doesn't have nearly the ceiling Thibodeaux does, but he can come in and he'll be basically almost a finished product day one, which is what Detroit needs. They need to get an identity. They just need to find stars for the first game of the season next fall.
Yeah, I like that analysis. Jacksonville, I feel like that would give them a bit of an identity on that line when we have Josh Allen on one side and Thibodeaux on the other. I mean, that would be something to fear as an offense coming in, the two young building blocks. And then Lions just need whatever they can grab the most talent they can. They really haven't had, they had Romeo Okwara, who had a decently productive season before he got hurt, and, not much else on that front. So you plug in Aiden Hutchinson from Michigan going to Detroit, just feels like a really good fit there. So we go down the order here. Houston Texans, you have them taking Kyle Hamilton, safety out of Notre Dame. This is interesting. It sort of reminds me of like Kyle Pitts going to the Falcons, where team takes that player, that unicorn, and hope they fulfill their potential. What are your thoughts on Kyle Hamilton there?
So Hamilton is my highest graded player overall in this entire class. Same thing as with was Pitts last year. And I was one of the people who were on Pitts the Falcons like for the whole way through. I was like, they should take Pitts. He's the best player available, and all this stuff scheme fit wise. And you just need good players in that team. And I got lambasted for that. I remember I posted a mock to Reddit and I had Kyle Pitts at 4 to the Falcons, and they just roasted me on that one. And now for Hamilton here, it's what you said about with Detroit, where it's like you need playmakers, you need stars. Hamilton is that. You already have Justin Reed, who can be that single high, flexible kind of safety guy, where Hamilton is such a versatile piece with his mix of size and speed and length, as well as just being an overall good, technically sound player. He can work on his run angles a little bit, but that's something that's not really, you don't knock a safety all that much for that if he can show that he's athletic enough to chase down backs, even if he doesn't take the best angles. So I just think that the Texans getting somebody in who could be an absolute blue chip generational kind of safety, and just someone who will, with the way the NFL is trending, where it's like there's two kinds of offenses, where it's the spread, where we spread you out and run over you, and there's those teams who are like, well, now teams are going smaller and faster, we're going to go back to running super big heavy sets and running down your throat. Hamilton is the modern defender, where he's fast enough to cover these quick receivers or really good receiving tight ends, but also has the size to match up in the run game and come down, take on an offensive lineman and stack shed and get off and make a tackle for loss behind the backfield, even with these more power running teams.
Yeah, he's an incredible player I've been following. Honestly, he just pops up on offensive tape. I mean, I was watching Deshaun Corbin, and Kyle Hamilton flew in and made like 3 plays in that game. I mean, no matter, whenever you're watching Notre Dame, he pops off, and I applaud. I mean, grab the best player available for the Texans with where they're going. They got some work to do still, but I don't mind it. Jets going Tyler Lindenbaum, center from Iowa. I'll pair this up with their number 10 pick, Trevor Penning from Northern Iowa, offensive tackle. So you've got the Jets building through the trenches here. Tyler Lindenbaum, this might be the earliest I've seen him go. I don't look at a ton of mocks right now, but what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so a lot of people aren't letting Lindenbaum go super high up just because he's only 290, and he also doesn't play a position of that much like importance. What we've seen with like when the Colts took Quentin Nelson, we all thought, oh, it's too high for a guard. If an offensive lineman can play and be a difference maker for you, you take him wherever you can get him. And so to compare him up with Trevor Penning, I feel Penning is so. I had to actually make a referendum right before we started recording this, where I switched around a couple of picks because I had gone back. I had just watched Senior Bowl yesterday. I recorded it, and I went back and rewatched some Trevor Penning film, and I had to boost him up to like my top 20 on my board. And I moved around a couple offensive tackles, nothing really big change, so I didn't really feel necessary to repost anything or anything like that. Nothing too big change, but I have Penning and Linderbaum because they have Mekhi Becton and they have these pieces, but Zach Wilson got hurt last year. He came back, and he's one of those players where you needed him to have structure because he can make plays out of structure, but he's also kind of frantic and wants to play that hero ball. If you can get an offensive line in front of him to calm him down and to give him space to work, and I feel like that's your number one priority right now as an offense. You have the defensive-minded head coach who doesn't really like to go defense high in the first round if it's not like an impact defender, like a defensive lineman who I kind of just, I have Linderbaum in my top 5. I was like, I'll take him here. And then Penning has just been a big riser for me. Linderbaum, if you watch him, he just moves. Like if you watch his tape, you catch his, like normally linemen don't catch your eye, but he does, especially in the run blocking, because he just moves faster than anybody else on the field. Like DBs and linebackers don't move as fluid and as quick as he does on the line of scrimmage. It's kind of terrifying to watch him move so good for even not at 290. And he was a wrestler, so it's like people are like, oh, he's too small, how's he gonna deal with big linemen? He's got that wrestler mentality. He pinned Tristan Wirfs in high school, and Tristan Wirfs was like 330 at the time.
Jeez.
So he knows how to work his leverages. Penning is just that nasty kind of guy who will bury you every single one of his plays. If he's not doing perfect kick steps, he's literally burying people and pancaking somebody on every single play. So I feel like they need to build an identity on offense of protecting Wilson and establishing a run game, which both these guys go about doing.
Yeah, I love that for the Jets. They got to build that sort of thing on offense. Zach Wilson, start of the year wasn't great, got hurt, came back, looked a little better, didn't turn the ball over quite as much. If they can get a good offensive line solidified for him there, I think that'll do wonders in there in New York. Another New York team that's going to be building through the trenches that you have in the mock here. At pick 5, the Giants are taking Evan Neal out of Alabama. And then at 7, you have them taking Kenyon Green, guard out of Texas A&M. I'm a fan of this move as well. Giants offensive line really struggled last year. Daniel Jones struggled. Barkley really didn't have much room to work with. Do you think this will sort of help with some of those issues they're having?
I think it's gonna. You don't have a quarterback in this draft class that you look at and you're like, all right, if you're the Giants, I'm taking this guy because he's immediately going to be better than Daniel Jones day one. So I'm not going to take a quarterback here to come in and be worse than what I already have. I'll save my first round picks. If he's truly that bad, we can look for a different option next season. I like to go with the mantra of isolate the variable. I'm a science major. We talk about it all the time in like lab and classes and things like that. When we do experiments, you isolate the variable, find out what is actually causing your issues here. So you got rid of the coach, brought a new coach in who's had success with an offense, top 3 passing offense. You have an elite running back. You have a lot of good weapons on the offense. And now all you got to do is finalize that offensive line with Evan Neal, who is this monster of a person. He's like 6'7", 300 pounds. And he moves amazing. He could play left tackle, right tackle. He played guard in college, played all 3 of those positions. The only thing he didn't play was center. So I feel like he can be a versatile piece. You can put him wherever you want. I'd probably prefer him at left tackle, to be honest. And then for Neal hasn't gotten a lot of the hype that he had at the beginning of the season because not Neal. Kenyon Green. That's what I'm
sure.
There you go. Kenyon Green has lost kind of his hype. And it's kind of a problem we have as in the draft community is we have players who are just so good. Like they're so good, they're boring. And then you just lose sight of them because you've got all these other flashy guys. You got Ike McQuanu and Trevor Penning and all these other people that you're looking at like, ooh, they're so good. We should put them at number 10 to the Giants or to the Jets or at number 7 to the Giants. And you're like, well, Kenyon Green has been solid all season. He hasn't lost a step. He hasn't had any reason to go down boards at all. He's versatile. He played tackle. He's kind of like, he reminds me of Elijah Vera Tucker a lot. And again, another guy who was super good. I had in the top 10 of my board last year, but fell because just really good consistently across the board with nothing flashy is boring. And people don't want boring in their mock drafts. So that's why I have them going with these 2 amazing pieces at offensive line that aren't getting talked about enough. Maybe Neal a little more than Green, but Green definitely should still be in that top 10 discussion.
Awesome. Yeah, I like how you brought that up, isolating the variable. If it doesn't work with Daniel Jones, if they add 2 linemen like this, then he's not the guy. Like that's your answer. And next year's class probably looking a little stronger, at least upside wise, for quarterbacks. So I like those picks for the New York Giants. So move along here. We got our first quarterback off the board at 6 to the Carolina Panthers. That's Kenny Pickett out of Pittsburgh. And I'll lump in another quarterback here at 11. Washington football team taking Malik Willis. I know you're a big Willis guy. I'm sure you loved seeing the Senior Bowl performance and how that's all been going. We'll start with Kenny Pickett. First quarterback off the board. I think this is a really good fit for him. The quarterback is a need for Carolina. Sam Darnold's not the answer. Cam Newton's not the answer. They have some pieces in place, and Kenny's probably the most pro-ready out of this class to step in and make an impact. So what are your thoughts on this pick here?
So when I made this mock draft, I was putting myself in the seat of the GM chair of the Panthers. I'm not really going predictably. I'm going like, if I was the GM, what would I do for this team? And me as a GM, knowing my coach has previous connections to Pickett, he tried to recruit him to Temple, I believe. And then, so he has connections with Rule there. Rule likes his players that he tried to recruit in college. He drafted a bunch, signed a bunch of those guys to the Panthers when he finally took over, as well as, like you said, being the most pro-ready quarterback. He's not my number 1. Willis is my number 1, but Willis is going to need that year of, going out there, taking his bumps, probably going to have like a 6 and 10 year, but then is going to come back with a better year. Whereas Pickett comes in, he'll immediately get you to where you think you want your team to be. And when you have pieces in Carolina, I mean, their offensive line isn't the strongest, but this offensive line class is pretty deep. And also you have a little bit of cap room to move around with and mess around with in the free agency period. So I think bringing Pickett in, being able to distribute the ball to hopefully healthy Chris McCaffrey, you got DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, not Ian Thomas. Was it Ian Thomas, the tight end for
They drafted who's the guy?
Tommy Tremble out of Notre Dame. That's Tommy. You're right. So they got all these pieces around there that I think could be elevated with some better quarterback play. And having a pro-ready quarterback who has familiarity with the head coach, I just like that combination. As a GM, I want to get a quarterback comfortable if I'm going to draft him this high.
Yeah, and then for Malik Willis, I mean, you talked about the upside with him. I think this would be a great landing spot just because, they have Taylor Heineke. You don't have to throw Malik Willis to the Wolves there with the new Commanders team. But I think this would be a nice situation where you can sort of grow into that role. And then, God, I'm just thinking about like Malik Willis, Antonio Gibson, and Terry McLaurin tearing it up next year or the year after. So obviously this is a guy you've been standing on the table since before the season even started. So had to feel pretty good to see all that. How about this pick for Washington?
I like I said, like you were saying, you basically hit on all the points. Is that Malik Willis will give you the best throws of the day and the worst throws of the day, which is what kind of happened at the Senior Bowl. He mellowed out a little bit more when he was given. What I've been preaching this entire time was he has all these traits and skills, but if you give him some structure and some talent around him, which you gave him at the Senior Bowl, now that he's with some higher level competition, he won't have to feel like he's forced or pressed to play hero ball. And then when he goes to Washington, Heineke is one of those guys where he'll make some of those like hero ball kind of plays where he's running around, he'll maybe throw across his body and do the things like that. So it's not like you're having that big of a drop off. And Heineke has started for them, has won games for them, has beat the Bucs in the regular season with Tom Brady. So he can come in. You're not going to win a lot of playoff games with Heineke, but he can be that steady hand that's there, that guy who's been in the league for a while, as well as learns for at least half a season. If their season's gone, they might want to just throw him in, let him meld himself out there. But I think that having the support of a veteran quarterback, they've gotten their offensive line a little better since last offseason. I'll give them that. They got a lot of pieces. I'm just imagining like read option plays with Antonio Gibson or RPOs with Gibson and McLaurin. It'll be I think that plus they have having a strong defense so that even if he does make a boneheaded mistake and turns the ball over, they have a strong enough defense that will hopefully rebound to bail him out of some situations.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. Returning to this, we got picks 8 and 9. Atlanta Falcons take Jordan Davis, defense tackle of Georgia, just a mammoth of a man. And then the Broncos are taking Derek Stingley, cornerback out of LSU. I thought that was interesting just because, they took Pat Surtain last year and they're in the market for a quarterback. What are your thought process with that pick for Denver?
So my opinion of Denver is if you can't get somebody like a Kenny Pickett or maybe even like a Matt Corral, but I think it's a little rich to take him here at 9, that you could probably be in the market for like Kirk Cousins if they want to move him, or like one of these quarterbacks that are going to be available to do the trade, or maybe like a Jimmy G, something like that. Somebody who can come in and can just all you need to do is distribute the ball to the multitude of playmakers you have on that offense with Tim Patrick, Cortland Sutton, all them. They brought in Kyle Fuller last year on a 1-year deal from the Bears. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to retain him or if they're going to want to retain him with the money he's asking. And I just felt like adding a super highly athletic, good man, good zone cover corner, more specifically man, just because of his athleticism. Derek Stingley comes in. He's basically the more athletic version of Pat Surtain, and they can both come in, and I can just imagine having them both play on either side with Bradley Chubb rushing the quarterback. They got a good defense, and as long as they can get that, just a game manager, a game manager, but not like a Teddy Bridgewater game manager, if you know what I mean, like a little higher of an upside. My favorite thing to do here is like maybe trade a second for Jimmy G or try to sign him in the free agency market, something like that. That's my favorite landing spot for him right now. And if you can bolster and get 2 of the top 2 young corners on your defense, as well as already having a decent pass rush, and then Nathaniel Hackett only has to worry about fixing that offense, which he has a lot of pieces on, and not have to worry about the defense at all because he has studs everywhere, especially in the secondary. And they have Justin Simmons at safety, so it's like they got just a stud back. They got a stud defensive backfield. So adding Stingley to that just increase that to the point where teams aren't gonna be able to throw on them. You face Patrick Mahomes twice a year. You face Justin Herbert twice a year. You face Derek Carr twice a year. You need to stop the pass somehow, and I feel like this is just a perfect match of Fuller leaving, the division they're in, and letting them worry about the offense through other means other than trying to reach for somebody who maybe not be worth the 9th overall pick.
Yeah, when you lay it out like that, it's like the Broncos are just a quarterback away from being that kind of a team. I guess I agree. Like Malik Willis isn't going to step in there, and I don't know if he's going to make things better right away. Jimmy G, I've been a harsh critic of, but I mean, you could see them using him the same way he was using Sam Fram, where you just get the ball to playmakers, and they've got the playmakers. So if worse comes to worse, you roll with a Jimmy G. Kirk Cousins, I would actually like that a lot there if they could somehow figure that out. But moving along in this mock, we've got Minnesota Vikings, as we were just talking about, Andrew Booth, junior cornerback out of Clemson. What are your thoughts with Andrew Booth? I honestly don't know a ton about him.
Okay, so Andrew Booth, before this season started, he had only like 400 total snaps and coverage coming into the season, which is like a season's worth of production, if that. Probably that's actually less than that for the Clemson Tigers. And no one really had a lot of film on him because he wasn't, when in those snaps he did play, he wasn't targeted. So when you watch, you have to really keep a close eye on him. He's just so technically sound in both zone awareness and man coverage. He's got athleticism. He's got ball skills. He's somebody that goes out there and he's another one of those guys who's just so good it's boring. Where like you get lost in the shuffle with, oh, Derek Stingley's this big flashy athletic corner. You've got people like Ahmad Sauce Gardner, who's got the cool name, and he's this really tall dude who makes picks. He played for the underdog Cincinnati Bearcats. You got all these guys with these different storylines where Andrew Booth has just been solid and consistent for the past season and a half for the Clemson Tigers, one of the best teams in college football normally, defensively anyway. And he's just out there not getting targeted at all because he's so good in coverage. When he is targeted, he's making picks or breaking up passes. And like I said, he's just so good. He's boring. And the Vikings have whiffed on a lot of first-round corners. I feel like getting him in there because you've got Patrick Peterson as one of your corners right now, and I don't think how long that can last. So I think replenishing that and trying to move on, reset your defense, get a new leader out there on defense, especially in the secondary, would help a long way with them. And I just think it was the best fit here outside of like maybe offensive line.
Yeah, they could definitely use some help at DB, at corner, and this sounds like a guy that would fit in perfectly there for them. They're in a weird spot where they just haven't been able to put it quite together, and now they fired Mike Zimmer. So we'll see what direction the Vikings end up going, but corner I think would be a solid pick for them. 13, we got the Cleveland Browns, and we got our first wide receiver off the board, Treylon Burks, guy I know, I'm a big fan of. Tons of upside with him, size, speed, specimen, and feels like a guy that Cleveland sorely needs in their offense.
Yeah, I looked at the wide receiver core back when Olave was popping off before the season started. I had him here because, especially when they lost OBJ, they needed that crisp route running kind of guy. And I thought Olave could slide into the OBJ role. Maybe he's not as athletic after the catch or dynamic. And then when I saw that, I was like, well, they could get a Derek Wilson who's more dynamic after the catch, but they have a Jarvis Landry. I was just looking at all these wide receivers and plugging them into the Browns depth chart and thinking like, which one complements what they already have? And I'm thinking Treylon Burks, who's this gigantic receiver who runs faster than he should, who can throw some blocks. Maybe doesn't necessarily want to, but you can coach that up. I trust Kevin Stefanski. And there's one heavy offense who can be that gadget player who can be in the backfield for this Browns offense, who's probably losing Kareem Hunt. You add a different dimension to your running game when you add him. He is somebody who can gimmick up like play action heavy screens and things like that to get the defensive bite on that, free him up some run after the catch opportunities. And he's going to be more your outside guy or gimmick touch guy, whereas Landry is your slot and like your reliable, dependable third down kind of guy. And they got people like Donovan Peoples-Jones to be the deep threat. So you don't have to worry about Burks just running up the field every play. He can work every single level of the field and as well work, damage you with the ball in his hands.
Yeah, I'd like that. That'd be a nice little receiving core. Burks, DPJ, and Jarvis. And hopefully Baker fully recovers from that shoulder injury and we see old Baker and we see the Browns be successful again. 14, we're going to go with a guy who's kind of fallen here. I mean, he's been talked about in play for the first pick. Ikem Ekwonu. Is that, did I say that? Ikem Ekwonu?
Ikem Ekwonu. You're basically there.
Yeah, offensive tackle.
You got me a few times reading it.
Yeah, offensive tackle out of NC State. So like I said, he's been talked about at the top of the draft. Seems like a steal here for the Cowboys at 14, who are looking to get some more offensive linemen in there as changing of the guard sort of. Why do you have Ikem falling this far? And is it just how the boards played out, or what are your thoughts here?
So I watched Ikem Ekwonu back last October when I watched most of the tape I watched him initially was him as a guard at NC State. I still had him as like a late first. I found him to be really lungy and not being able to bring his lower body in with him to when he went to blocks. When I went back and rewatched some of his 2021 tape when he finally kicked out the left tackle, those problems have been fixed for the most part, but I still have that image of the guy who was a little disconnected from marrying his feet with his hands, could get out there and get into a little holding kind of trouble, and is relatively new to the position. He's a little short to be playing tackle. He does give you the position flexibility, but I feel like he's one of those guys where you're going to put him at a tackle, and if he strikes out, go to guard. He's still really good. I think I have him as like tackle 3 behind Neal and Penning. I just have those hangups of size. He has length questions. He doesn't show a lot of problem with the length, but on film. But I feel like his length could be questioned when they move up to NFL. He might be an advocate for moving, or he might have to move into guard a little bit. And like I said, he had most of the issues on the film when he was playing at guard. So that gives me a little pause. This was actually a mock trade I made where the Cowboys moved up with the Ravens to grab that, I see that a left tackle prospect here. Because I had him falling, and I'm like, well, he's so good. And I know that the Cowboys are losing Tyron Smith soon. He's been injured a lot if he even comes back this year. So they come out, grab the best left tackle on the board because that's a very high position of value. Baltimore likes to have a plethora, like 1,000 picks every draft. So they're going to take just a bunch of draft capital in return to move up. We're going to move down a couple spots and allow the Cowboys come in and refix that left tackle problem.
Okay, yeah, I didn't notice that at first. And that definitely feels like a move where Jerry and the Cowboys, they're going to want to try and move up, get that guy. Got Micah Parsons last year. They're trying to build something there quite again. So yeah, seems like a solid fit there, even with the little question marks you have, I suppose. All right, let's get on to the Philadelphia Eagles segment. We've got quite a few picks for them here. At 15, we have Trent McDuffie, corner from Washington. At 16, we have David Ojabo, edge from Michigan. And at 19, we have Nakobe Dean, linebacker from Georgia. So we go heavy on defense here for Philadelphia. A lot of names I like, a few guys I've watched. Let's start with Trent McDuffie. I know you're a big Washington Husky fan. What can you tell me about him?
So Trent McDuffie, and I'm going to keep bringing this up because, like I said, it happens every draft season. And as someone who I watched like 150 guys last year, and it was more relatively close to the end of the season, I've refined my tactics to watch now. And I got into McDuffie before the season started. I did a lot of scouting in the summer. He was one of them. And then I got back into him later because I saw a bunch of people were talking to him as like a top 10 player on their boards, and he fell to like the 40s and everyone else's board. I'm like, well, this guy I saw in 2020, what happened to him? Went back and watched him in 2021. They don't throw the ball at him. You don't get a lot of film on him because you don't see him on screen. Everyone's biggest gripe with him is not his technique. His technique is perfectly sound. He's a great zone corner. He has all the athleticism you want. He's 5'11", but plays like he's 6'3", 200 pounds. He comes up and he just lays people out. People are worried that he's going to be like a slot only corner, but I comp him to Tre'Davious White, another 5'11", 185, 190 corner who's really adept at zone and will come up and play the run despite being a smaller guy. Which is why I always liked him going to my Bills because I know he's probably going to fall, but I can't. He's like my 9th or 10th player on my board right now, and he's just so good in every facet of the game. He's going to fit anybody's scheme. Like I said, most people's hangups with him is that he's too short or he's too small to play on the outside, but he has the mentality of an outside corner, and he makes plays on the ball. I can't argue with what the tape shows of him making plays on the ball. So I can't really put a lot of stock into that. He's just so talented that I can't knock him for his size, especially when his attitude makes up for it.
Sure. And then you got Ojabo and Dean adding to that defense. What do you like about that pairing in there in Philadelphia? I know at linebacker, they could use a Nakobe Dean. I mean,
oh yeah,
slotting in Alex Singleton and TJ Edwards, like you get a freak like Nakobe Dean, maybe a little undersized, but I like him a lot there. And they really haven't had a consistent edge rusher for a bit as well. George Karlaftis, I know, is sort of in that second tier with David Ojabo is in that second tier with George Karlaftis. Really fit what they're doing. So I like this haul you gave him.
Yeah, I went heavy on the defense because the team, I think they were the number 1 rushing team last year. The biggest issue you probably have on offense is a question at quarterback to see if Jalen Hurts can actually throw the ball. Their offensive line is stout. Maybe you can give them another weapon or two. But this class of wide receivers, you already have a number 1 Devonta Smith. You have a running back of Miles Sanders. You have a bunch of guys you can grab in day 2 and day 3 that are going to come in and can play for you right away if you're the Eagles. You don't need like that number 1 alpha dog dominant wide receiver there right now. You have Rager. You have Devonta Smith. You could try to make those work, and you're more of a run-heavy offense regardless. So going to the defense, trying to be able to build that attitude of run often, play strong defense. And Ojabo he's super raw. Like they have some rushers there from the holdover from like the last time they picked him, like Derek Barnett and a couple of other guys they've grabbed in the previous years. So he doesn't have to be like that instant impact starter right away. He's kind of like a Greg Rousseau, where he's super athletic, but doesn't have a lot of technique refinement. He's super explosive, super bendy, and I just feel like he can come in and be like that juice kind of player on third down, come in and just rush off the edge, beating off his tackle on the outside, and really put pressure on these quarterbacks, which now, after this mock, Washington has Malik Willis, and you got Dak Prescott, and
True.
you also have, well, now you have some more blockers on the Giants offensive line, so you need to try to get after those quarterbacks. And then with Nakobe Dean, Dean's an amazing linebacker prospect. His biggest issue is his size, because he's super explosive. He can read defenses really well. His size gives him a little issues when he's tackling, but like everyone's biggest issue is he's not scheme versatile. He's gonna need somebody who can eat up blocks in front of him, so he doesn't have linemen in his lap every single play, where he can shoot gaps. I don't know what's a better defensive lineman who can eat up blocks than Fletcher Cox. So if you put Nakobe Dean stacked on top of Fletcher Cox, let him absorb two offensive linemen, and just shoot the gap and make plays in the backfield. I don't know a better fit than that for this kind of linebacker prospect.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. I like that a lot. And it would be a brand new Philadelphia Eagles defense. Looks like you have them committing to Jalen Hurts. Kind of sounds like they are, but they've got the picks here if they wanted to switch things up. But moving on here, George Karlaftis to the LA Chargers. Like I said, he's sort of in that tier with Ojabo. Is he behind Ojabo in your rankings, or they right neck and neck?
I think it's more of I liked the fit with Ojabo to the Eagles and then Karlaftis to the Chargers enough. I think they're neck and neck. I think I have Ojabo ahead of Karlaftis as of right now, just because he's more of an explosive, bendy kind of guy, where Karlaftis is this big, hulking 290 defensive end who is technically refined but doesn't have that explosiveness you want. I liked it a lot for the Chargers because they need an edge rusher opposite Bosa, because they got rid of Melvin Ingram, and they've been searching for that impact defender on the interior of their defensive line. And Karlaftis is one of those guys who can reduce down into like a 3-tech, or even to like a head up on a guard and play D tackle if you need him to. So they can both get an edge rusher to complement Bosa, as well as somebody who can come in and impact the middle of the defensive line, which they've been lacking for a few seasons.
Yeah, I like that pick there. Moving along, we got another quarterback off the board, and this is a fit I really like. The New Orleans Saints at 18 take Matt Corral out of Ole Miss. Obviously, Sean Payton is gone. I would have liked to see those two work together if this actually happened. But in an offense that, they have Jameis, who's going to be coming back from an injury. You don't know if you consider him the guy. They maybe need some they maybe have a little work to do, but I think Corral in New Orleans is such a good fit in a dome. The way he plays, the tight spiral, good velocity. He'll just be able to get the ball out to playmakers. And the third quarterback off the board here. What do you like with him, Matt Corral here?
So when we did our video with each other, I think like about almost a month ago, where we talked about our our quarterback rankings and that, and you told me your favorite fit for Corral was the Saints. I thought of you when I had this pick coming up.
Thanks.
And even though Peyton's gone, they still have the same coaching staff regardless, because they just hired Dennis Allen.
Yep.
So now they're keeping all the assistants, and they still have the same offensive coordinator, I believe. If you didn't I don't think he got a job this year. If I'm recalling correctly, they have the majority of the same offensive personnel, if that is the case, who can come in and still instill that Sean Payton level of offense they had and scheme them up like you were talking about. I think Sean Payton was really the only thing keeping Taysom Hill as a quarterback in that place. Sure. And he is probably going to be a cap casualty just because they're so far under the cap, or I'm over the cap, I mean. And I think that having Matt Corral come in, be this creative guy who can work off script kind of thing, and he has a strong arm, he's intelligent. He had some fits with turnovers in small doses, but other than that, he's decently well at taking care of the ball. And he made a lot of work with not as much talent as you'd think at that Ole Miss team. So I feel like having the lack of receivers in New Orleans isn't really that big of a problem for him coming in. And I just think it's an overall best fit. And he's kind of been out of sight, out of mind. We can talk about the Senior Bowl, where every single other top cornerback in this draft class was at the Senior Bowl and showing out. We kind of just forgot about Matt Corral, who had an ankle injury, but he's going to be fine for the combine and throwing drills and pro day and stuff like that. So he'll come in, he'll still be able to play day one, but we kind of lost him. He's been kind of lost in the sauce because he wasn't in the Senior Bowl. So he's going to fall probably just because people are out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, it's interesting. He's actually gone down my rankings a little bit. I'm just slightly worried about, he was very RPO heavy at Ole Miss, and with Lane Kiffin, out of structure. I know he's got the arm talent and the mobility, but I want to see how like that decision making and all that translates. But like I said, I love the Saints as a landing spot, so I think this would be perfect. Moving on to a guy here at 20 for the Pittsburgh Steelers that I messaged you about because I hadn't heard of this guy. We got Jalen Petrie, if I said that right, safety out of Baylor, and I had to message you because I hadn't heard of him before. I know he's at the Senior Bowl. Give us your Jalen Petrie talk.
All right, awesome. This is what I've been waiting to do this. I've been bothering about doing this because I've been wanting to talk about Jalen Petrie. Quick backstory. I was helping my girlfriend move back into school about 2 hours away from where we live. And she was like, oh, I'll do my laundry. You go do whatever you want. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go do some football stuff on my laptop. And I'm looking because I'm like, oh, the safeties on our database is a little low. There's only like 5 of them because Jordan Battle went back and Jalen Catalon and all these other people who I was planning on doing or had already done. So I was like, oh, we're a little late on safeties. Let me just pop out a couple safeties. So I went and checked the Draft Network. I went and checked PFF's big board. And I'm like, oh, this guy, he's like a top 40, top 50 kind of guy. Let me go check him out. Holy crap. I'm sitting there and she's done with her laundry at this point. I'm just trying to she wants to lay down and go to sleep. I'm like on my phone watching Jalen Petrie film while I'm laying next to her in bed. Like, I need to keep watching this. This is amazing. So there's a position on the Baylor defense called like the star role, which is basically like we call it big nickel in like our dime linebacker in the NFL, where he bounced around. He played a lot of slot corner and a lot of like basically big nickel linebacker kind of positioning for the Baylor Bears this year. And he was fast. He was explosive. He blew people up. He's not afraid to tackle anybody. He measured in a slightly shorter than the 6 foot I would have liked at the Senior Bowl, but I still gave him the 5'11" there. He's literally like Tyrann Mathieu. If Tyrann Mathieu was 3 inches taller, it'd be him. It's like Budda Baker again. Where he could come in, he could be a linebacker if he wanted to. If he had another inch on him or inch or two on him and a couple like 20 more pounds, he could be like a weak side linebacker. The only issues because I had looked at all these places, like, why isn't anybody talking about him? Why isn't anybody talking about him? They're like, well, he played mostly slot corner or a linebacker, or he would come off the edge a little bit, but he was never like a true deep safety. He played strong safety a little bit, but never deep safety. And we're worried about him tracking the ball in the middle of the defense or being able to make plays and have sidelines on the range. I'm like, he has sideline to sideline range. It just happens 5 yards away from the line of scrimmage when he's hawking guys from across the field, or he has ball skills like when he's playing slot corner and they're facing Oklahoma State with 3 minutes left and he makes a play of the game to keep the touchdown pass from happening and they win because he stopped the guy from catching a wide open touchdown. So I don't get really the tracking. I kind of get, but like at the same time, play him at strong safety, play him at slot corner. Slot corner is such an undervalued position by teams right now. I don't know why they're not valued higher in the draft or in free agency, because everyone plays nickel. Everyone has a slot corner. There's so many slot receivers that like you can come out and draft these guys who are big enough to play against tight ends, but also quick enough to play against slot receivers.
Yeah. Wow. You got more?
No, I was just going to talk about his fit with the Steelers, but you can go ahead and intro that if you want.
Well, no, I like that a lot because that feels like a player the Steelers could use on defense where maybe aging slow. I mean, the defense was just porous for the Steelers and feels like a guy, the versatility you're describing would be perfect for a team who sort of needs help at corner, needs help, interior and on, they got Minka, but who's Edmonds isn't really anything to write home about at safety either. So he sort of helps out with all that.
So when I was making this pick, I was like, I need to fit Jalen Petrie in here somewhere. And I looked at the Steelers and I looked at the depth chart. Tyrell Edmonds is now he's an upcoming free agent. They should not bring him back. No, they should not bring him back. He would Petrie would fill in right away at that strong safety position. Even if you wanted fit Minka to be still like that versatile slot piece, you could still have him just have Petrie be like the strong safety, and I still think he could play free safety, or put Minka more at that traditional safety role, which is what he complained about when he had to get himself traded out of Miami. The defense with Steelers, when TJ Watt was not on the field, they were a totally different unit. They lit up passing galore against the Chiefs in the playoffs. So getting somebody in who can man up against a Travis Kelce or be able to keep up with like a Mecole Hardman out of the slot would be a good way to try to help establish yourself on the defense. Like I said, I think it just fit best with how they have expiring, how good he really is, and that no one's talking about him. I had to get him on here somehow. And just I didn't really think there was an offensive lineman here that would have fit for the Steelers, which is their only other really big weakness I think they have there. They'll find a quarterback, like in free agency or something.
Man, you got me inspired to watch some Jalen Petrie now. I got something to do after this.
I just posted a YouTube short / TikTok about Jalen Petrie, 1 minute draft summary. Go check it out. I just recorded it the other night. I edited it last night. It's up right now. It basically just says everything I just said, though. So you probably won't get much more.
I'll link it in there for you folks if you want to catch that out. And if you aren't already subscribed to Owen's channel, you're doing yourself a disservice. So I'll link that in there. Moving along now, some more DBs. We've got 2 corners going here. First, we've got New England at 21 taking Roger McCreary out of Auburn, and then the Vegas Raiders taking Ahmad Sauce Gardner out of Cincinnati. So it's interesting. You have McCreary before Sauce Gardner. Sauce is actually one of the few players I've watched, like corners I've watched. I did a game of him just because I knew everyone was going to want to see him versus Bama in that playoff game. And I was really impressed. I mean, he's a big guy and he moves really well. So I was super impressed by Sauce Gardner. Why McCreary first? And maybe tell me a little bit about him, because I don't know as much about McCreary.
So he's one of those players where Gardner gets a lot of the pizzazz because he was on a college football playoff team. He's this big dude with a cool name and he moves fast and he's really good. I will give you that. He's really good. These guys are both top 20 players on my board. I have McCreary slightly above because I think he's just more technically refined. Like I said, like he's more. It's when you watch corners, it's hard to. It's kind of an art that I'm still trying to perfect, because you get these guys who are so good in like zone and man that they don't get balls thrown at him, so you don't get to see him, make plays in the air. You don't see him a lot because he's off the camera, playing just solid defense. And I think that him being as technically refined as he is, and he is a good athlete, he won't get burned. He'll catch up and make sure he doesn't get burned down the field like that. Similar to how Gardner is, where he's just a really good athlete. I think McCreary just fits what New England trying to do better, as like he's more technically refined and kind of one of those guys where I know New England likes longer corners, but I think McCreary has some good length despite being shorter than Gardner. Gardner is phenomenal, and that's why I mocked him to the Raiders, because I know they need more DB help, and he's definitely somebody who can come in and immediately make that Raiders team better. And like I said, and when we talk about the Broncos, they need corners in that division that they're going to be playing in.
Nice. All right, I like that. Moving on, 23. Let's put a couple. Well, we'll start with this one. Arizona going Garrett Wilson, wide receiver. Thought this was an interesting pick. They took Rondale Moore last year. They've got DeAndre Hopkins. Is this just the rich get richer on offense, or what's your thought process with Garrett Wilson in Arizona?
So that's definitely my feeling. I was a big Christian Kirk fan when he was coming out of A&M, and I haven't been overly happy with what I've seen of him in the NFL so far. Like, he's been fine, but I feel like they can upgrade that slot position there. Rondale Moore, I wasn't the highest on him last year, but I feel like he's definitely shown some big flash plays. He's definitely your deep threat, gadget touch player kind of guy. DeAndre Hopkins is your typical X. AJ Green's going to be gone. I think that Christian Kirk, I'm pretty sure he's up for a contract. He might have to go just because of how they're going to want to save money there. And I think bringing someone like Garrett Wilson, who can be your slot guy, who you find him no matter what, like Rondale Moore might have trouble getting open, if not gimmicked up, or like having these specific plays run where he's the main focus, he's the first route read. DeAndre Hopkins is always going to be open, but they're going to be double and triple teaming him every game. You got a safety valve option like Garrett Wilson, who can break any play deep, like with run after catch ability. I think that's just a good way, a good addition to that receiver core that they don't. It's like they tried to do with Andy Isabella. They didn't really fell through. Kirk was more of the route runner kind of guy, deep threat, where again he fell through. And now they got Rondale Moore to take that spot. I just think it fits a class of wide receiver they don't have that will just add another dimension to this offense, which they're trying to please Kyler, and now that he's eliminated them from their Instagram out as of today. So I think adding someone like this will both please him and add just a different variable on there.
Yeah, that was interesting. I saw the whole Instagram thing going on. I don't know how much you can read into it, but the only pictures he had were with Packers coaches from that Pro Bowl thing. There's 2 photos, and never know, it might happen. But Garrett Wilson would be interesting. I don't know if I could see them. I just don't know if they could take a receiver here. I mean, that's just me, but I mean, it would.
We've definitely seen we've seen teams double dip at offensive skill position when they didn't necessarily have to in previously. So I'm not the biggest fan of doing it, but I thought of pleasing your quarterback and just having a precedent set before this. It wasn't the most outlandish thing I had done in this mock.
All right, that's fair. Moving along, we sort of talked about this already. Darion Canard, that was part of the move down with the Ravens. You want to give just a quick hitter on him?
Yeah, so Darion Canard, humongous man, played right tackle for Kentucky. Absolute road grader. I think his nickname was King, or some. I think one of the people I listened to on the podcast nicknamed him King Kong because he's just huge. And I just can't imagine him plugging over Marshall Yonda was and just having
sure.
J.K. Dobbins run behind him every single play. It's a match made in heaven, and he can pinch hit at right tackle for you, which with Alejandro Villanueva's health concerns and overall Ronnie Stanley's health concerns and overall just a bit of a shallow pool at depth for their tackle position. Canard brings the versatility. I think he plays best at guard. And just imagining, I made this whole mock draft just to give the Baltimore Ravens Darion Canard.
Really?
I'm not particularly a big fan of him. He's not a first round grade. He's like an early second round. But I thought, holy crap, imagine if Baltimore Ravens got Darion Canard. How can I make that happen in a mock draft? Let's go make a mock draft real quick and have that happen. And I was like, well, I don't really want him going at 14. Oh, sure. Look at that. I come Aquanu still here. Let's have Cowboys move up because they need Tyron Smith. Oh, look at that. Ravens are in an area where I'd be happy with getting Canard.
I love that. And hopefully adding him in to a team that was decimated by injuries, hopefully they're more healthy. And I think could be a big part getting that running back game going back there in Buffalo. Or not Buffalo, Baltimore. Speaking of Buffalo, this is your homer pick, Buffalo Bills fan. And this would be wild if they did it. Going receiver, Jameson Williams. Obviously, I've talked about him a ton. Great speed, blew up this year, and then he blew out his knee, but he should be all right. Should make a full ACL recovery. Jameson Williams to the Bills. Would this just be a Christmas gift to you, or what are you thinking? Is this one of your first options?
So I am particularly in the camp that the Bills should probably go offensive line or maybe a linebacker with this pick. Or maybe I wanted a corner. I had my heart set on Trey McDuffie, but I had to screw myself. And I was looking at it. And I'm like, Jameson Williams is gonna fall. He's my wide receiver 2. He's gonna fall because of the injury. And you just had a track meet with the Kansas City Chiefs, and Tyreek Hill burned you in a matter of 6 seconds for a touchdown. If you can get you draft Jameson Williams here because he's gonna fall with the injury. He is gonna be a literal Christmas present because he probably won't play until December. So you draft him, stash him. You're going to be good regardless if you have this pick or not. I don't think anybody like Rousseau they added last year didn't make an immediate impact, and they still were fine. They still made it to the divisional round. So whoever you're drafting here is probably not going to be a day one impact on such a deep roster. You draft this guy, let him heal up as slow as he wants to heal up. He's ready for the playoffs. You get an impact player for the playoffs, which he would have given you this amount, and you just have Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs do their thing in the regular season. And then you just add Jameson Williams to a team that's in the playoff, healthy Jameson Williams. I think it would just add a whole different dimension. And hopefully we'll get them over the top of the goddamn Chiefs.
Yeah, we're both still reeling. He is a Bills fan, me as a Packers fan. It was a brutal postseason. Thank God we have the draft. But
brutal weekend overall. That single weekend, that one weekend, yeah. God damn it.
Yep. So yeah, that would be wild to see him paired up with Josh Allen, and you still have Diggs, and you've got Gabe Davis. Be interesting. I feel like if they end up going running back at some point, it'd be kind of cool later, but I don't know if that's.
I feel as though they've invested 2 third-round picks in their running backs. Spending another first, even though obviously those 2 thirds maybe not have worked out as much as you wanted them to. There's no sense in just keep throwing picks at it. I think they brought in Ken Dorsey as offense coordinator. Maybe they can get some different scheming going up, and it's going to be a matter of scheming and offensive line talent as opposed to running back talent, because any running back can be good. We've seen that with like San Francisco.
Yeah,
so I feel like they could much rather have an X factor on the outside with a speed receiver like Williams than just throwing another body in the running back room to try to see if that'll fix it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Moving along here, we've got Devin Lloyd to the Tennessee Titans at 26, linebacker to Utah. So another guy I've watched a bit and I was a really big fan of. Instincts, got everything. It's interesting you have him a little lower than Nakobe Dean here. Obviously, this would be a great fit for Tennessee just because they've been I mean, Jayon Brown has fallen off, been hurt. Rashaan Evans isn't good. They had to bring in Zach Cunningham at some point to play snaps. So Devin Lloyd would be huge for the Tennessee Titans.
I was a little late to the Devin Lloyd party. I know a lot of people were talking him up and hyping him up. And then I finally came back around. I rewatched every single tape I watched of him the first time around. And I was like, there was something I was missing. And he's a really good blitzer. And he's really good in the box. He can drop. He can be in the pass coverage. But I feel like his third down ability would be more of an edge rusher or more of an interior rusher or more of a blitzer than like a pass coverage, which he can do. But I feel like that's more how I would play him. So he could fit that Rashaan Evans role, that maybe Harold Landry role, where you have him rushing off the outside as a more of a sub linebacker kind of guy. And he's just an overall really good athletic linebacker in a position they really need. I have him going lower than Nakobe Dean just because I think Nakobe Dean's a little more explosive. And even though Nakobe Dean doesn't have the length and the block shedding ability that Devin Lloyd does, I think having Dean it was between Dean and Lloyd for the Eagles pick there. And I thought if I had to pick one of these linebackers to fit into the scheme, I would have rather had Dean than Lloyd for the Eagles. So then Lloyd obviously fell to the next linebacker needy team here with the Tennessee Titans.
Yep, like the fit. It'll be interesting. I know I'm really into IDP fantasy, where these guys land, where they end up going in rookie drafts. Those are two guys I'm obviously very high on. Moving along, we've got Cair Elam, cornerback from Florida, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We're headed into the post-Brady era, and we give him a corner. Not really any quarterbacks left on the board here that are worth it. What's Cair Elam's deal?
Cair Elam, he's a lot similar to Sauce Gardner. Long, I think they're almost the same height, athletic. He's going to be a good man corner just because of the athleticism and the length he shows. The reason I have him lower than Gardner, and I have not been as bullish on him as other people have been, was when I first watched him in his 2020 tape, he was god awful. I have to go back and watch some more tape of him. Obviously, you see the last write-up I've done of him was in September. But from what I saw of the late 2020 film and the early 2021 games I saw, god awful in zone coverage. He had no, like, you want to have somebody who can sense when a wide receiver is being shown to you in a shallow zone to be able to drop back and think, oh, they're probably trying to attack me behind right now. So I'm going to take that away and then attack the shallow zone if he gets the catch. Everything else other than that, solid first round kind of corner. He just, I have to go back and see if that got better. 2021, with the way other people are talking about it, doesn't seem like he's, did anything really amazing. But so he's just more of a guy who's going to need to be in that, like, maybe like a Dan Quinn, Seattle Seahawks cover 3 scheme or a press man scheme, which is what I think the Bucs are going to rely more heavily on. And they drafted Kyle Trask. I didn't think they needed another quarterback. You wouldn't have drafted him. Usually the NFL teams have like the next two drafts ahead scouted. I don't think you would have drafted Kyle Trask if not to eventually play him someday. And they probably saw the quarterback class this year and were like, we'd rather have Trask in a year in a system than any of those quarterbacks as rookies for next season.
All right, so on to pick 28 in my Green Bay Packers. You have them taking Chris Olave, wide receiver out of Ohio State. Now, this is an interesting player, wide receiver, because, obviously I've got the dynasty angle of all of it, and it feels like this is a guy who's getting consistent round 1 NFL draft capital, but isn't quite there in dynasty into the early second behind plenty of other receivers. I don't mind the pick, honestly, because he's going to translate so well to the next level. Like, it's kind of a lock. I just don't know if he has the upside of some of these other guys, but the Packers desperately need some help at receiver. I mean, Lazard's all right. MVS was hurt, and we were so excited to get Amari Rodgers drafting wide receiver, and then he did absolutely nothing this year except muff punts. So Chris Olave would be a welcome addition to the Packers wide receiver room.
Yeah, so my thought process was there's 2 ways you can think about it. One, when Aaron Rodgers leaves, if that is the thing that does happen, and you have to turn it over to Jordan Love. I'm not sure how you feel about that product or that theory. I'm just gonna stick it out there. It has been suggested that Devontae Adams would also want to leave with him, or just want to leave the team if he is also gone. So my theory was you get a crisp, good route runner in Devontae Adams, replace him with a crisp, good route runner in Chris Olave. He may not have the athletic upside, but you won't lose that route running specials. You have the bigger body guys like MVS and Alan Lazard. You have the slot potentially in Amari Rodgers. So if Devontae Adams does leave and you have to have Jordan Love start, you want to have him have somebody who can make people miss him and get open frequently with route running. And if say if Adams and or Rodgers stay, adding Olave just adds a second good route runner in case Adams goes out with injury, or you just have injuries with like MVS or something like that, or like again, Amari Rodgers continues on to pan out. You just add another receiver to that group who could mimic what Adams does. So now you have, instead of having just one route or one concept on one side of the field where Adams is, because he's the only one who can really run that kind of route to get open, you can now mirror that concept and be able to audible to whatever side you want, or be able to flip the play without really tipping off the defense. Oh, hey, you see Devontae Adams is going over that side. They're probably just moving the play to that side this time. Yeah. So I had both scenarios in my head when I was picking this player. I'm not the biggest Olave fan, especially because he isn't the most athletic after the catch and doesn't have that athletic upside. But as a stout route runner who can be a day one player for a team that needs some wide receiver help, who may already have a number one wide receiver, I think Olave would fit best with the Packers.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think if Devontae stayed, I would like Chris Olave because he has that craftiness, that smoothness to him where, everything was designed for Devontae Adams. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but he's getting a little older and you maybe don't want to work him crazy hard. If you have Olave on this other side, that would really take the pressure off him. Not that he can't handle it, but it would just be another way to open up the offense. If Devontae leaves, I think I would rather just draft a guy like Jerick London, have that alpha receiver, that really high upside kind of guy. So that's sort of where I would go with it. I would give my input as a Packers fan, but I pick makes perfect sense. I could see him doing it.
Yeah, I can definitely see someone like a Jerick London who is falling because of an injury. I mean, I wasn't that high on him to begin with, but like again, he's falling because of injury. He could fit with the Packers, especially because if Adams is still here for a year, maybe he would move on to the next year after that.
Sure,
you would want to have somebody in the wings like a London.
All right, moving along here. A few more picks. Miami Dolphins take Ed Ingram, guard out of LSU. Probably fill me in on this guy's not someone I'm all that familiar with.
Yeah, solid high second, late first round kind of guard. Isn't gonna blow you away. He's not elite at anything, but he's just overall good to great across the board. He's got a good anchor. He's good at being able to reach the outside shoulder. He can play the power man gaps scheme, which I'm pretty sure they're gonna want to be more towards that. The Miami Dolphins have been more of a draft the heaviest offensive lineman available and just one power. And that hasn't worked. Now with the Shanahan tree put in, they're going to be more of a zone read kind of concept. Someone like Ingram is going to come in, be a good move blocker for them. Just like I said, solid is boring. But you want to be able to, if you don't want to have a bust in the first round, like you have these picks where like, boom or bust, which is where you can either hit big on the pick or, bust out with it. When you're picking at 29, getting somebody who's a solid 10-year starter for your team is probably better than going and swinging on that boom or bust, even if it is going to be a boom. So I feel like getting someone like that for the Dolphins who have had offensive line woes for a long time and somebody who could play way beyond his years, I think is a good pick for them here, especially with how they're unsure where they're going to move forward with that offense.
Yeah, I like the idea of a consistent offensive lineman for them for Tua. And I honestly, from a fantasy perspective, I'm really interested, with them getting the 49ers offensive coordinator. If they were to take a running back on day 2, I'd be very excited just because, they're rolling out like Myles Gaskin, Salvin, like not guys that pop off the page, but you grab Ed Ingram, a stout offensive lineman for years to come, and then grab Kenneth Walker or someone round 2, round 3. I mean, it'd be a lot of fun, but sounds like a nice little pick for Miami there. Then we go to Kansas City. Daxton Hill, safety. I like this pick just because Daniel Sorensen sucks. Feels like, I don't know what kind of a player Daxton Hill is, but really anything on that back end would be a massive improvement for them.
So Daxton Hill is a 6-foot safety around there, 6 foot, like near 200-pound safety. Like he's like probably like 198, I'm pretty sure. And he is like a genuine like 4.3 kind of speed dude who also, he was tasked a lot to play as like that slot corner for them this year. Yeah, 192. He was tasked to he was a deep safety for a while, and he played more of the strong safety role for Michigan. And then when for 2021, they moved him into more of that big nickel slot role, kind of like how Jalen Petrie was. But he has the genuine 4.3 speed. I think in high school, he ran like a 4.4 at his recruitment day or something. So he has the genuine speed to play free safety. You can move him everywhere. Daniel Sorensen is awful. They need someone else besides Juan Thornhill, because you have Tyrann Mathieu in that like box safety slot corner kind of role, where if you can have somebody like Jalen Petrie who can be that single high, who has definitive range and just has to sit back there and make sure new Buffalo Bills wide receiver Jameson Williams doesn't break a 75-yard touchdown, or have Gabe Davis break a 75-yard touchdown in one play in the AFC divisional round, you could probably use him. So I think somebody with that level of speed and that level of starting who started for that long in that caliber of a defense under in the Harbaugh regime, he'd definitely be an addition to that defense that I think we could really use it.
Sounds like a really nice fit there. Pick 31, we've got offensive line help for Joe Burrow, Charles Cross out of Mississippi State. I feel like this is a lot farther down than where I've heard his name maybe a little bit. Obviously, this offensive line for Cincinnati, not great, but they've made it work and are heading to the Super Bowl. So Charles Cross falls a little bit. What are your thoughts with him?
So I actually have Charles Cross tied with Ekwonu as my number 3 offensive tackle on the board. When I said came in and did some referendum for when I had Trevor Penning shooting up the board, I originally had Ekwonu at 10 and then Cross at 14 to the Cowboys. So that's where I have him valued as a blocker. I just thought that because Cross, he's a leaner kind of offensive tackle. He doesn't have a lot of power in him. If you're going to run towards the side, it's going to have to be more of an RPO or a stretch, a zone kind of concept. He's not going to one-on-one blow a defensive lineman off the line of scrimmage, but he is the most refined pass blocker in this draft class. He's the best when it comes to that in this draft class overall. Footwork, hands, anything like that when it comes to pass blocking, he is the go-to number 1 man. And I think with the Bengals getting somebody like that who can come in and be left tackle, allow you to move Jonah Williams around, who, if you want to, you're gonna run your offense through Joe Burrow. I know you have Joe Mixon, but Joe Burrow is that offense, lives and dies by it. So if you're gonna have to protect him, get the best pass blocker, and maybe try to teach him some more run blocking, maybe add some weight onto him. But he has such a good baseline with where they're already at with wanting to pass the ball 40 times a game that's the kind of guy you want to get. And the only reason why he fell this far is just because he doesn't fit everybody's scheme. He's not a guy that if you're a cold weather team that wants to pound the ball like Baltimore, or the Steelers or someone like that who wants to get an offensive tackle that can, move some people, he's not going to fit your scheme. I think that he would fit best with a spread offense, which is where the Bengals are going to kind of lean more towards with how many weapons they have and with Joe Burrow right now.
All right, moving on to the last pick of this draft, Detroit Lions are taking Jerick London, who I talked about earlier, wide receiver out of USC. I love this fit for Detroit just with what they need. Obviously, Amon-Ra came onto the scene in the second half of the season. Looks like a really consistent receiver for him. Got to get more weapons there. I don't think Jared Goff is the future, but you have another down year and you grab a Bryce Young or oh my gosh, why am I blanking? Ohio State's quarterback.
CJ Stroud.
And there's honestly, I've been watching more quarterbacks for 23, and there's a lot of names, a lot of guys with upside. So maybe one more down year. They probably they've had the second pick, but they kind of overperformed for what we expected for Detroit this year. You bring in Jerick London, you've got him, Amon-Ra, Swift. You got a nice base for this Detroit team that is building for the future.
Yeah, Jerick London, he's falling right now. I wasn't his biggest fan at the beginning of the season. Funny enough, I became more of a fan after he got hurt because I got to go back and was like, all right, this is the definitive film we're going to have on Jerick London. Let me just really pick it apart with a fine tooth comb, watch each game over a couple times to really see what I'm missing here, what everyone else is talking about. And I kind of started to get it. He originally was like a big slot guy in 2020. And then when 2021 rolled around, he definitely showed that even though he doesn't have the best release package or the most crisp route running, he can still get open. And he excels in that 50-50 ball kind of area. The injury, like I said, is going to make him fall. If there's going to be a kneecap biter in this wide receiver class, it's going to be Jerick London. And I think Amon-Ra St. Brown, he was a slot receiver at USC, and he'll probably do his best work as a slot and come to the NFL. So You have this X kind of guy, this alpha dog, number 1 receiver, perimeter kind of guy in Jerick London, and then you have your slot and Amon-Ra St. Brown, both USC guys. You can really start making stuff work with that, and he gives you that he makes 50-50 balls, 60-40, 65-35. And if Jared Goff is going to play like he did last season, he could just at any point in the game be like, fuck it, he's down there, and just toss it to him. And it'll be fine. Drake London will mock guys for him and make him look better. So I think that this is going to be attitude-wise a good fit. He has fallen a little bit where I'd like him to be, and I think that it just fits well with what they already have in there. Replace Kenny Golladay with Drake London. I think you don't lose a lot, maybe even improve in that position.
So one thing I'm noticing now is no Sam Howell in the first round. What you're gonna have to answer to the folks out there questioning that one.
So, like I said, my favorite selection. If someone's gonna pick Sam Howell, you got to come into it knowing that he's gonna be a guy who he showed better out of pocket, maneuverability, and be able to make plays off platform. And I feel like you got to get a team. He's gonna have to be in a team where he is the distributor. He is the Baker Mayfield. He is the guy who's going to get the ball to the playmakers and not to be tasked with, throwing a team on his back in the last 30 seconds of the game to drive down the field and score a touchdown. He needs to have my favorite planning place for him is Denver. If Denver goes with Derek Stingley at 9 and they can somehow trade up into like 33 or up to 32 and get Sam Howell, that'd be perfect for me. I think that's my favorite pick for him just because when he had all those weapons at UNC, he was a much better. We looked at him a lot better than we do now, where he had to basically play with nothing. I just think that him and Malik Willis are in the same boat where they had to make a lot out of nothing. And I think that Malik has just those elite talent traits, which is why I had him going ahead of Howell. And Howell falls out of the first just because a lot of these teams in the back half have their quarterbacks. Maybe like a Titans could have, but they have more pressing needs than quarterback right now. I just didn't really see a team that I liked Howell over who I gave them. And I think that Howell is I think he's more limited of a ceiling player, that he'll go early second. If I extended this to the first 10 picks of the second round, he would have been in there. So would probably Desmond Ridder. I just think that he needs a specific location to land in to succeed. And a team that is like a quarterback away and has everything else, like a Vikings or a Broncos, maybe even like, I don't know, like a Bears, but they have Justin Fields. They have like these teams that have guys there in place with weapons, maybe like a New York Giants that are a quarterback away and some good coaching away from getting into the playoffs. I think that's where he needs to land to be successful overall.
Yeah, I'm looking at the teams maybe in this range that could look at him. I mean, probably it's Pittsburgh, but I know I follow some Steelers guys and it seems like they're leaning more towards Malik or Pickett, so they'd have to move up to go get him, but that's who they're showing the most interest in. Tampa Bay possibly could see them doing that, and then Detroit. And I mean, Detroit's going to be up in 2 picks after this. I mean, if you go,
Jacksonville's not going to take quarterbacks.
Yeah, so if you get they took Aiden Hutchinson at 2, Drake London at 32, and get Sam Howell at 34, I think they knocked the draft out of the park. For me, but I'm okay with Desmond Ridder falling out of the first. I think we're both on the same page with him, where it's you want to like him, but the accuracy is just not going to magically get better, especially at the next level. I don't know how he's going to adjust. There's going to be a team that might take a chance on him in the early second, and I'm fine with that if they think they can fix his flaws, but I'm okay with him falling out of the first.
And for the Bucks idea, like I said, with how I think it was, who was I talking about? It was they had drafted it's kind of like how the Vikings drafted Kellen Mond or the Texans drafted Davis Mills, and how the Tampa Bay Bucks drafted
Kyle Trask.
Yeah, there you go. I was blanking on his name for some reason. They already have their guy. They probably looked ahead because like these are NFL teams with active machines where they have enough scouts to draft the next 7 drafts in a row if they really wanted to. Where they probably last year had Kellen Mond and Trask and all these guys scouted and were like, okay, if we draft Trask and he needs to play next season, are we better off with him playing next season after sitting 1 year in our system behind Tom Brady? Or are we more likely to have to draft, or would we rather have Sam Howell in year 1 in our system? They probably looked at it, saw all the options in the quarterback class, thought Trask for a year opposed to these rookies. We'll just ride it out with him. And I that's why I'm not too big of a fan of these teams like with the Jalen Hurts or with like teams that like you have a question mark at quarterback. I feel like I'd rather just see if they can go 1 more year, instead of spending a top pick on a quarterback in a class that is very unproven and very uncertain. especially with like Sam Howell, who has a low ceiling. You might like for the Bucks might want to go with him just because he can distribute it for them. But like I said, what was the point of drafting Kyle Trask and benching him for a year if you weren't going to try to see what you got in him?
Sure, makes sense. All right, well, that's all 32 picks. That's the mock draft. It was a pleasure to have you on. I learned a ton. I hope all the viewers at home did as well. We probably do another edition of this at some point.
Oh, yeah.
Post
combine's in like 2 or 3 weeks, right?
Yeah.
So
run it back next month. A lot of new info, and then the hype will really be building. So I'll run the ad stuff as usual. I'll put that little thing on the screen if you guys would join the Dynasty Index, get all this stuff that I have on the left-hand side. We're already digging a little bit into that 2023 database. So we're going to be ahead of the game for next year. I mean, this is the first year it's really been done. I spent all summer just building it, and now we finally have it sort of set up to where we can start moving forward to the future as well. So any parting words, Owen?
I'm currently I'm at YouTube at the Weekly Huddle. I got the ad and I got the logo in the back going. I post a lot of things, not just draft related, but I mostly just spend most of my free time doing draft. I do these little like YouTube shorts, TikTok things where it's 1 minute draft summaries for every single player. I'm going to try to get at least 150 done by the time the draft gets around. I got like 10 right now in the pipeline. I got to get to editing. I'm just going through and basically just giving a quick summary of what you'll find on the draft or on the Dynasty Index. And it's not going to be as in depth as my write-ups on here. It's not going to be as in depth as with my points. You're not going to get the mock drafts. You're not going to get the Dynasty rankings that Caleb does. We have somebody who does the stats, right? Like the
analytics portion. Yep.
The analytics stuff. Yes. We have that in here. So yeah, I do that kind of stuff. I also just do. It's supposed to be a weekly podcast, but with how much hectic and chaotic I've been with this stuff, it's been kind of inconsistent. But I do podcasts talking about the regular NFL season. Like I'm doing an awards episode soon. I do football / sports related icebergs. I know my NFL iceberg has got a lot of traffic. I'm currently editing a college football iceberg, and then I have, which is the craziest of them all, an NFL draft iceberg. Some of the stuff on this, I made it myself, and I went and delved like articles that had like 3 views on it, covering these teams and stuff. There's insane stories. One of them, I'll just give a sneak peek. One of the stories on the one of the bottom tiers is, you know how the joke is that Twitter GMs, they always want to make these picks. There literally was a Twitter GM where the Washington football team went to this reporter who was criticizing their draft picks and was like, "Here, you make a pick," and then he made a pick. They left a reporter make a pick because they were tired of him saying stuff like how we talk about people's picks. It's insane, and that actually, I haven't looked at it in a while, but I'm pretty sure that was the first African American ever drafted. But I have to double check that. It is crazy the amount of the stuff that's on there. So I'm working on those. Those are taking a little bit longer to make. The draft content stuff I'm making, I do delve into like some film. I do some film breakdowns, and I mostly just spend time working on this thing. So come check it out if you want to get a little more other things other than draft, but also more of the summaries that you'll find on this website here.
Yeah, I watched your NFL iceberg thing, and honestly, I didn't even really know what this iceberg stuff was until you did a video on it, but some really interesting stories in there. I know it's been getting some good views, so I'm excited for that college football one. Anyways, thanks again. Thanks for sharing this mock draft. If you guys want to join the Dynasty Index, you would have seen this a week ago, albeit he's made some changes since then, but the draft, we're always adjusting, new information, new film. I'm grinding, I'm uploading stuff. There'll be stuff uploaded in the coming days as well. So as always, everyone, thanks for tuning in, and we will catch you next time.